Hi everyone. I'm recording this lecture to cover more on MQTT. Now, I think last week we have done this before. We have learned about the basic of networking. We also understand why the conventional HTTP is not so suitable for IoT systems. Now, we also studied that one of the de facto standard for IoT is MQTT. All right, let's move on to MQTT. Now, in MQTT, right, basically the whole idea is we use a broker to actually allow us to communicate. So this is something like that. Okay. Now this broker, we can actually set up our own broker, or we can also use some third party one. Okay, you can actually try to search online, you can see some free one. But again, please be advised that the security of this free broker sometimes is questionable. Yeah, so please be very, very careful if you are sending, transmitting sensitive data. So for MQTT, right, as we have done in our last lecture, I've shown to you that all these sensors and also the clients, they do not really need to know uh, the exact IP address of the sensors, and the sensors do not really need to know the exact IPs of the client. So yet they can actually share information, exchange data through this publish and subscribe model. So for the anyone who can get connected to the broker, this is the first step only. Of course, the second steps is that for those who wants to receive information, they need to subscribe to the correct topic, okay, to the right topic. And of course, the one who wants to share information or publish, they have to publish to the specific topic that others are subscribing. Okay, this is a very important thing. Otherwise, the information will not be able to be exchanged. Yeah. So once you connect to the broker, we need to make sure that the publisher and the subscriber are actually using the same topic. Now, having said so, right, the all the client device or the server device or the sensor device, all of them, right, can actually be subscriber and publisher at the same time. So which means that it is not an exclusive role. Okay, so now the beauty of this thing, right, actually lies in how we actually structured the topic. Now, I have covered with you and demo to you during the class, and of course, if you have time, please try it out. Yeah. Now, I want to show you a bit more. Of course, MQTT, the another not only before we go into topic, another beauty of it is that it is extremely lightweight. Okay, if you compare it with HTTP, you realize that MQTT requires less bandwidth, less overhead, yeah, to actually exchange information. And in fact, original it was actually used for monitoring oil pipeline through the desert. Yeah. Okay, and then of course, I think today is around 5.5.1 or 5.2 version. Why it is a de facto standard, and you can see that even cloud service provider, when they provide IoT, they actually provide MQTT broker as well. Yeah. So in other words, right, if you don't want to use those public and free one, of course, as I mentioned, you can set up yourself. Or another options is that you subscribe from cloud service provider. In this case, you can subscribe MQTT from AWS. In fact, if you look at it, I think the number of messages they can send is very, very high for a very, very low cost. Yeah, if you don't want to maintain or manage your own MQTT broker. Okay, Azure as well. Again, you see, they support MQTT as well. So in other words, right, all these uh, um, large, or I say that the top is in the cloud service provider, they are also using MQTT. So MQTT again is a protocol, yeah, which means it can be running communication technology running over um, that's Wi-Fi, okay, your cellular network. Of course, if you set up your internet connection via Bluetooth, it will also workable one, yeah, it can work. And of course, if you want to compare, this is a very good experiment that you can do. Try to run HTTP and MQTT to send the same amount of data, and then you will realize that the overhead for MQTT is way lower than HTTP. Yeah. Okay, so this is the whole thing. The idea of publish and subscribe, as I mentioned earlier, you should know it by now. Of course, the more important thing is the topic. I want to talk about the topic now. So the topic, all right, you actually use something slash. Of course, we can just put a word. Usually, that is just a you're not using maximizing the feature of MQTT. So we usually will put a slash. Now, slash in computing is like directory. Yes, you can imagine it as a directory. Yeah. But of course, the whole thing is a string. Okay, from a broker perspective, it is just a string. Now, if you see here, if you have an smart home, your house or house, maybe there are multiple house, so you can have house 01, house 02, house 03. Yeah. Of course, inside each of these house, you have your living room, dining room, and each of these rooms, yeah, they probably have their own sensors. And of course, from there, you can also check out uh, what are the information you want to publish or subscribe here. In this case, for instance, some of these sensors, audio sensors, wanted to publish its status, and this audio sensor is actually located in house one living room. Yeah. And of course, any other devices who wants to know the status of audio sensor, they can actually go to subscribe this exact same string, and then they will get periodically will get the audio sensor status. Of course, again, this one will depend on how the sensor actually send this data. And then we can also do something like that. The sensor can also like subscribe to the same topic, like this, for example, audio sensor setting. Now, this one, you can use it for client device or an IoT server to actually send instruction back to the audio sensor so that the audio sensor can take action. So just as I mentioned earlier, a device can be the subscriber and publisher at the same time. So in this case, this audio sensor can be publishing its status and at the same time subscribe to this settings topic so that uh, others can actually send in the instruction for configuration. Now, the beauty of it is here. Now, why the slash matters? The slash actually help us to actually manage this topic even better so that we can actually include something what we call wildcards. Yeah? Wildcards can be in a plus, for example, this plus symbol. In this case, all right, sometimes let's say we want to have all the uh, sensors in all the room of house one. You want to know the status. So in such a case, all right, all you need to do is just to replace that these two at the plus, and then you only have to subscribe this topic, one topic only. When you subscribe this, all right, all the subtopic, yeah, will be subscribed as well. So once you subscribe this one, all right, you see a lot of status from all the sensor status, yeah, in all the rooms from this house 01. Yeah. So again, if you do this, of course you can try this yourself, where you actually subscribe to this, and then you have another one published and at this using this topic. Now, this plus symbol is known as a single level wildcard, which means that only every particular level, that level, which means that all you can imagine like all available topics, yeah, which means that as long as the topic match the house 01, diary room, and status, then they should publish it, send it to you. Yeah, that's the ease. That's the way. Okay, you can subscribe this, and then you get all the topics, all the updates. Yeah. Okay. Another one is this hash. Now, this hash is what we know as multi-level wildcard. In other words, all right, yeah, you can put this. In other words, you can just subscribe to hash. Usually, we don't do that. It's not advisable to do that. But if you do that, all right, if you subscribe to hash, what will happen is like you subscribe to all the topics in the broker. Now, of course, if the broker are carefully configured, usually they don't allow you to do this. Now, if you subscribe, if those, if you configure yourself, and of course, if you want to develop a monitoring of the brokers, you can also subscribe this hash on your own, so that you get to see all the messages that is being exchanged between all the sensors through your broker. So again, this is an example. Now, if you look at this example, house 01 slash living room slash hash, which means that whatever whatever thing out at the back here, we don't care, and it can be multi-level. We will listen to all of these topics. And of course, now you know that if your app is going to be very, very busy, all this will come to you. Yeah, and then of course you can use this uh, as a way to monitor all the sensors inside your living room. Okay, of course, then you have such a lot of other configuration you can do. Okay, for example, you can retain a publication, which means that if after you send already, you just make sure that the message is sent, yeah, as a last good message to any new subscriber. In other words, once you send already, right? What if the subscriber will come join the broker later? Now, if you put retain means that if even you published, the subscriber join later will also get this message. Yeah, that's the whole idea. And then of course the subscriber can choose to be durable or non-durable session. Okay. All right. Of course, all this configuration you can try. Go ahead and try yourself. With the set up a broker, and it's very very easy to set up. I'll show it to you later. And then I think one of the very interesting thing about this is the MQTT also support last will and testament. In other words, right, we can actually know, uh, allow all the other subscribers to know that if a client get disconnected. So you can actually connect, and then you can set your last will and testament. The moment you get disconnected, uh, the broker will send a message to all the other subscribers so that we know that you are actually disconnected. Now, for MQTT, it provides three levels of quality of service. Zero is the lowest, where the message delivered at most once. One is message will be delivered but may be duplicated. And two is the message will be delivered once and once only. Okay, so that's the difference between all these uh, quality of service. QoS stands for quality of service. Um, a lot of cloud service provider only provide 0 and 1. Yeah, of course, if you want to support CoreOS 2, then probably you will have to set up your own broker. Yeah, so this is how things it works. Yeah, so you're always involved a broker. Now, of course, usually we'll put this broker in the cloud. Again, if you want to put this broker in your on-prem, which means that you don't want the broker connect to the internet but only work in your local area network, the answer is yes, it is doable. Yeah, MQTT is doable. All right. So again, these are the best practices for topic. You should always remember to use a slash. Don't just use a word. Sometimes depend on you. Usually I like to start the topic with the slash. Some people doesn't like that. Okay, so it really depends on how you, which one you prefer. Yeah, and of course make use of the wildcards. Yeah, single level wildcards and the multi-level wildcards. Don't forget that. All right. So that's all I have on this topic. Let me quickly find you how to set up the broker. Of course, nowadays you have AI. Uh, it's very easy to set up yourself. One of the broker that my favorite is Mosquito. This is my Mosquito broker, and yes, you can install in Windows or in Linux server. So it's an open source one, so you're free to use. And of course, it comes with command line uh, subscriber and publisher. So it's very, very easy to use. And if you like command line, this is definitely a very, very good app. Now, I know the day I demo is mainly using third-party app, but for us, we want to develop our own app. So again, once you have the broker, you can have this now this one is all I really like it because it gives us the um, APIs, a lot of libraries that we can use to support different programming languages that want to use MQTT, yeah, MQTT. So you can actually look for the applications that they support. So you can always look for libraries. Of course, the easiest one it will be a Python MQTT client. So this one is a you can use this one, this PAHO. And then if you see it supports MQTT 5.0, yeah, you are basically you just have to install it, and then you can see basically the code is very, very simple. You can get to develop your own MQTT client. Now, of course, for those who wants to use Java, you can do that as well. Yeah, this client. I would say that there are lot of programming languages supports. Yeah, you can actually find them and to develop your application. How about those who are using like Arduino? Do we have that? That is yes. We have MQTT for Arduino. SP32 for instance. Yes. Then you'll find libraries, yeah, on how to become a client, publish and subscribe using your ESP32 or I mean Arduino is a bit I mean it's a platform again. Of course, if you use those that have no network, then it's a bit weird lah. That's why I'm searching for ESP32. Of course, if you have a device that has internet connections, uh, yes, it will work in on your Arduino Nano. Of course, you have to have a network device as well lah for it to get connected. It's just lightweight and yes, uh, it's going to be very, very fun for for your IoT devices to send data to you, and then you can do message exchange. Well, that's all I want to share with you this week. I hope you enjoy. Do remember to do the quiz, and if you can, please try out this hands-on, okay, of the MQTT program. All right, see you guys. Thank you. Goodbye.